All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We are here again at the Emergency Operations Center in Kenton County and here to update you on the repairs of the Brent Spence Bridge, what's going on there today. Let me dial back a little bit, though. Just a few days ago, well, it was within 5 days of the crash. We went from a crash to a contract in 5 days. And that was a significant effort led by Governor Beshear. His leadership helped us all along the way. And the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet then went into action as soon as the crash occurred. And within 5 days, we had a contract to repair the bridge. Now, let me also dial back to talk about what that contract looks like today. The contract is with KYTC Construction Company. A formidable construction company, a very experienced company, and they will have crews, KYTC will have crews working 24/7, even through Thanksgiving and the weekend. So that work is already underway. And as you know, we have a target date for completion and reopening the bridge on December 23rd. Now, that said, I want to emphasize that safety remains our #1 priority on this project. We will be engaging this repair project urgently, but not hastily. There will be no cutting corners in this project. And that is a testament to the talent and the competence of all the team working on this project. There are literally hundreds of people. And that's what a project like this takes. It's not just what you see on site, but all the engineering behind the screen, all the inspectors that have worked on the project. So when I say literally hundreds, that's the way it is. And this talent is coming and is assembled literally around the country, from around the country. Okay, now let me talk to you about another piece of the project. As I said, lots of moving parts. We ordered and we found the steel stringer beams early. As soon as the crash occurred, we knew that we had to find the replacement beams. Should the condition of the beams that support the upper deck, should that condition of those beams be compromised? It was during the inspection, it was discovered that the beams were compromised. We had those beams already on order. And in just a minute, Laura, if you'll put a picture up, we have a picture of the beams that will be delivered to the site today. They're being delivered from a fabricator. The fabricators in Frankfurt. The beams actually were sourced from 4 different states. And this is the first batch on a flatbed on the way as we speak. I just talked to the president of Bottoms Engineering Company, which is the steel fabricator that sawed and drilled and painted these beams. And they're on the way. The first batch, the first load of these steel beams are on the way to the site as we speak. Now these beams are called stringer beams. They basically, as I said, they support the upper deck, the concrete upper deck of the bridge. They're 27-inch deep beams, and they're the same beams that are supporting the upper deck today, but these are new ones because of the compromised upper deck beams. All right, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about now the active work zone. I talked about KYTC Construction Company, which is the prime contractor for the repair work. They've kicked off their work last week, removed the removal of the damaged portions of the upper deck. That's the concrete surface on the upper deck. It's an area roughly 180 feet by 46 feet. That's pretty precise. That's not exactly rough, is it? So that's about 6,900 square feet. And what's going to occur there is KYTC, its crews will be saw cutting in roughly 6 by 6 foot panels, this roughly 7,000 square feet of the concrete deck. Those panels then, those 6 foot square panels will then be removed. They'll be hoisted, they'll be lifted up and removed and from the upper deck. This allows us then to install the new steel beams below that deck and ultimately to replace the concrete upper deck. Now, of course, while the major portion of the project in many respects is the repair work, we're also managing a significant traffic challenge, a significant traffic management project. As you know, roughly 170,000 vehicles a day travel across the Brent Spence. So that traffic is being diverted. Of course, this is Thanksgiving week, usually the biggest travel week of the year. And this year, we are encouraging folks to break with the tradition for the sake of public health. Limit your travel to what's necessary. Stay healthy at home and help slow the spread of COVID-19. This is what you've heard, the message that we have all heard from our governor. Now, we also know that essential services and personnel still have to keep moving. While the repair project is going on, we encourage all travelers who plan to pass through the region to plan your trip, plan ahead, know your route. This image illustrates the diversion routes. Now, you can also visit KYTC's District 6 website or Facebook page for updates and information. You can also find information on the website BrentSpenceRepair.com. Let me say that again, BrentSpenceRepair.com. Now, I'm sure that those of you who are with us this morning, the press, know that I have signed an official order that restricts commercial traffic on the section, the 1-lane section for local traffic north of 275 on 75. And the purpose of that, of course, is to limit the commercial traffic that would otherwise be on the local streets in Covington and surrounding communities. I mentioned also already that we have launched the new website, BrentSpenceBridge.com. It's a definitive source for updates about the repair project. And it's also where you can find traffic monitoring resources for the surrounding area. Also, please follow TriMark Traffic on Twitter for up to the minute traffic incident reports in the Northern Kentucky region. Again, that's TriMark Traffic with the TriMark Twitter handle. Okay, so with that, we will open it to questions. And Laura, if you'll be our, actually with no pun intended here, our traffic director for this, I would sure appreciate it. Thanks.
Good morning, Secretary Gray. Thank you very much. We do have several questions that have already come in. And the first one is from Tana Weingartner at WVXU-FM. And she wanted to know, what is the estimated cost of the repairs and where is the money coming from?
Okay, it's a good question. Fortunately, there was a very quick turnaround on emergency repair, on emergency relief funds from U.S. Department of Transportation. I can't praise U.S. Department of Transportation enough. They sent inspectors to the site immediately. They did a quick turnaround on our emergency relief funding. The first tranche of that essentially was a down payment, in a sense, was $12 million. So we're working with that first tranche, that first down payment of $12 million. There's still a lot of moving parts, of course, on the project, but let me say that in the interest of taxpayers, we are doing all we can to do this project efficiently. But as I said earlier, safety is our first priority. Safety is our first priority. So that's the answer on it. That's the answer to the question in terms of costs. We don't know the full costs yet. We're still working on that, and we've gotten funding of $12 million.
Great. And then Tana also had a second question and was asking if the cause of the accident has been determined, and if so, what happened?
Yeah, the investigation is still underway. And when we have the information that we are able to share, of course, we will share it.
Okay. Christian Hauser from WKRC Local 12 asked, his statement is, we continue to have trucks going through Covington. They are also blocking traffic intersections as they try to negotiate the 90-degree turns where there is little room for a semi to do. The neighbors and businesses in the area are complaining to the Covington Police Department. At what point will the state step in and ask for the enforcement in the area to try and keep these trucks on the preferred routes?
Good question. Well, I talked earlier about my official order, which allows for citations, which allows for enforcement of any traffic, any truck traffic north of 275 that's traveling on the local route on 7571. So as we speak today, local authorities have that enforcement authority. Now, having said that, we know that there are 170,000 vehicles today being diverted from the bridge, and there will be some traffic challenges over the next more than 23 days or 25 days. There are going to be traffic challenges, but I can assure you that we are on top of this. The Transportation Cabinet, Kentucky State Police, our local authorities, our local police are all on top of it and monitoring it. And we are working to continuously improve. So having the feedback, we welcome the feedback, and we'll work to continuously improve. But we also ask for patience. It's a big challenge.
Great. And Mr. Hauser had a second question asking, will the state consider issuing tickets instead of just educating truckers if the problem persists?
Well, I've said that local authorities and the state have enforcement authority at that area on 75 and 71. So it's the short answer on that is that we have begun with education, of course, rather than enforcement. But we have always, since the official order was executed, then we have this authority. We have the authority to issue citations and enforcement.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney Francisco from CPO Channel 9 asks if there is a potential start date for the companion bridge construction. If not, has there been a discussion on a start date?
Yeah, well, right now, this is about blocking and tackling on the current repair project. And while there has been, of course, conversation about the companion bridge to the west, our focus today is on the repair project.
Great. We have a couple hands up, so I am going to turn this over to a live discussion. And our first speaker is Tom Latek. And when I'm going to unmute your microphones, if you all will introduce yourselves and say where you're from, that would be greatly appreciated. Tom, you're up.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you, Jim. I've got two quick ones here for you.
Okay, Tom.
First one, are you going to put future limitations on the type of cargoes that can cross the Brent Spence, given what happened here? And will the repairs be able to increase capacity at all on the bridge? And I thank you, sir.
Yeah, fortunately, I should have mentioned earlier that our chief district engineer for District 6, 48-year veteran of District 6, Bob Yeager, is with me today for supporting us. And also our project coordinator, Stacy Hans, also an engineer with District 6, who is responsible for both the traffic management and the repair project. Tom, why don't you do that second question for me again?
Okay, let's
Oh,
see.
I know what it was. You were saying, is the repair work going to actually increase capacity? The answer to that is no. Okay, and, but that, we are restoring the bridge to a safe and sound and sturdy condition. Okay, I've always said that the issue regarding the companion bridge has always been one of adding capacity, but it's not been an issue associated with the condition of the bridge. The Brent Spence is a safe and sturdy and solid structure. Okay, it's a matter of capacity, as you've said. You know, we're now putting 170,000 vehicles across that bridge a day. It was originally designed for 80,000. So relief of that is what the whole conversation, a relief of that capacity issue is what the whole conversation has been about. But I'll also say that I've been a bit surprised at the confusion associated with the plans. There are people still that think that the Brent Spence is going to be removed. And that's actually, as far as I know, looking at the plans for this project, the master plans for the project over time, that's never been the speculation. It's always been that it would be a companion bridge, that the plan would be for a companion bridge to the west that would relieve the congestion. Now, in terms of the traffic over the bridge and the hazmat, that's always a work in progress. And whether or not that's examined is something for us to consider as we go downstream.
Okay, great. We have a couple other hands up. I believe Christian Hauser had a question. So Christian, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up to my previous question. So I've talked with Covington Police as well as the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement with KSP. Covington Police say that they're following the order not to only educate any drivers that they do stop, but they also point out that they can't be focused on this because they have other crime in the city to worry about. And then the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement says they've only been asked to keep the bridge, to keep folks off the bridge, essentially, to just kind of monitor that situation. They said that, you know, they would obviously work on enforcement if asked. It's just no one's asked them. So I guess, would you care to clarify that they can issue tickets, not just education? And also, at what point do you consider getting, you know, the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement involved?
Yeah. I may ask Bob to supplement what I have to say here, but I will say that the official order provides for local enforcement. And that is up to and after or on the exit ramp off of 75. But the local police do have that authority in the area. Bob, if you want to add to that, I'm going to ask Bob to come over and I'm going to put my mask back on. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We realize that there are problems with the traffic. The trucks that go through Covington are on roads that basically won't suffice for their loads. We are getting some of that in. I think that has gone down dramatically from the first days, and I think we are getting the message out. There are some things we can do. Obviously, we would like the cooperation, and if it continues to become a problem, enforcement could be used as far back as Buttermilk Pike, getting them off there because they're not allowed in that slot if they're going through anyway. The difficulty we have if they're on the streets down there is we really don't know where they started from. The information, the official order covers those through movements that have to use the outer loop. So if they've got on somewhere else, we would have to ask that when they're stopped. But we can certainly help with the enforcement if necessary. If Covington can't supply the resources, we can certainly get some of our resources in there to help once we see the problem is creating the issues that we see.
Okay, great. Next we have Karen Czar. And Karen, I am unmuting you.
Karen Czar.
I'm sorry, Karen,
Hello.
there,
Karen Czar.
we can hear you.
Hello. Happy Thanksgiving, Secretary Gray. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
This may have been asked, and I apologize if it has. I'm having a connection issue, but I have two quick things. One, do you anticipate any travel on the river to be closed at any time soon for safety reasons? And the other, thank you for sharing the resources for checking traffic. For those who are traveling out of central Kentucky over the next few days, have you found a better time for them to travel or not, or is it literally just changing hour to hour?
Yeah, well, we are monitoring the traffic conditions all the time. It's a 24/7 effort, Karen. And so we have always said, you know, if you don't have to travel, please try to avoid it, especially under the COVID conditions. But KYTC, the cabinet, is monitoring the traffic conditions literally 24/7. And your first question, would you do that one more time for me?
Do you anticipate any travel on the river to be shut down at
Okay.
any time
Yeah,
soon?
yeah. Fortunately, and as we would expect, the contractor has developed a plan for the removal of the concrete deck, the slab area, and for the removal of that material. And all of the construction is designed to be accomplished without compromising, without having to close the river traffic. Now, that said, if there is any concern about any activity and that would compromise safety, then we're going to examine that carefully and determine whether or not the maritime or the river traffic should be contained.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, great. Our next person is Kyati Patel, and I am allowing you to speak. And if you'll introduce yourself and say where you're from, that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, good.
Okay, I believe we lost the audio.
Okay, we're trying again.
Is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Good morning. I'm Kathy Patel with Spectrum News 1. I have a couple of questions, but I'll ask the first one right now. The executive orders, or rather the orders that you put in for semis to use a 275 loop, is that something you foresee that could become permanent even after the bridge is repaired?
Okay, I had a little bit of trouble with that, hearing the question. Was it that would the order
be extended to more something more permanent to just help ease traffic and capacity on the double-decker bridge once it's repaired, so the semis can continue on the 275 loop and then resume their routes?
Well, the plan right now is to restore traffic to the previous model.
Is there something that you could do, perhaps a study to research and how, if it was effective?
Well, yeah, I've used the language often that we always focus on continuous improvement at the cabinet. That's something that I certainly believe in. And if we have the opportunity to examine it, then we will do that, or when we have that opportunity. And I think that's a fair question for sure. But I'll leave that up to our traffic engineers, but I will certainly share that observation.
Thank you. And my second question is more along the lines of the two trucks that were involved in the accident. Is there any liability or at fault and the responsibilities on the companies regarding just part of the repairs and everything involved in that?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this, that the investigation is underway, and the responsibility of the cabinet is to ensure that we do all we can to protect taxpayers, and that means, of course, finding any resources or securing any resources that are appropriate, and that's what we'll examine going forward.
Thank you so much.
Great. And then Brian Hamrick is next.
Hey, thanks for taking time. Brian Hamrick with WLWT. I had very similar questions about the responsibility of the trucks involved. I've talked to a lot of people who said, asked me, why is this the taxpayers' burden? I know we get federal money on this, but should the trucking companies that created the situation what is their responsibility in this? And how are you pursuing that
Yes.
actively at this point?
Yeah, we always do pursue any insurable avenues, and that's underway. That will be and is underway as the project develops.
So considering what happens, if you would explain that just a little more, are we waiting on would be like the police report to find out what the responsibility is or what happened? Is that part of the what factors into whether we decide whether we go after those insurance companies?
As you know, that when an investigation is underway and we have often legal implications, then there are limitations on what can be expressed at any point in time. But the history of the cabinet is to vigorously approach an accident like this for any insurable claims. So you can rest assured that that's exactly the protocol that we're following. We will approach this and identify any insurable claims and pursue them vigorously.
The other part I wanted to ask about was something else I think that came up as well in terms of having a more long-term approach to trucks going around and taking those loops. What are the challenges? I understand there may be some legal challenges to doing that. And what is the possibility that would actually happen because of the incredible, stress on that bridge when it is open?
Yeah. And that's a great question. And I'm going to ask the subject matter expert, Bob Yeager, to come back on the screen. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And Brian, I think if you've been around here a long time, we've done this a couple of times where we've banned trucks within the loop. Those were short term and due to construction, and certainly we can do that. But all of our roads, 275 experiences of backups at times. I-471, which is the other alternate, also experiences backups. We have to be able to keep a balance on all the roads that we have. We experienced that here in the last couple of weeks when we see that any one of these roads go down. This is a federal highway road. It's paid for with federal funds. Truckers pay a premium. They pay a large portion of that, and to sacrifice them, we would certainly like to keep that balanced. And I think we do. Ways, and some of those people will tell people when one road's better than the other. We do have some options. We do have to look at that as traffic becomes more congested. We certainly don't allow oversized loads, for instance, to go through there. So we do restrict a certain type of truck, but we can't restrict all trucks. It is a through movement. It is an interstate, and they are qualified and allowed at this point to use that. There has been discussions come up, and we'll certainly keep that in mind as we move forward. And as things get more congested, we certainly want to look at avenues that help the overall congestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking time out.
By the way, Laura, I don't know how many more questions we got. We're willing to take any, but I do want to introduce some questions that we've gotten through social media too.
Okay, great. We do have one person with his hand up, and also wanted to note that if anybody else has questions, to let us know that you would like to ask those, simply click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. But Secretary, would you like to go with Marcus Green at this point, and then we'll go to the social media questions?
Sure. Marcus.
Okay.
Thank you for taking my question. Secretary Gray, I just wanted to clarify something your office had replied this morning about the hazmat route across the Brent Spence. Is there any signage in Kentucky that notifies truckers who might be hauling hazardous materials that would qualify that they are not allowed to take I-75 north of 275 and across the Brent Spence Bridge, or is that signage only in Ohio?
Yeah, Marcus, I'm going to let Bob Yeager take that question too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Marcus. That's been a question that's come up a few times now. The signage, we typically don't post signage typically don't post signage for hazmat type locations. The same as we don't usually post for the width of the lanes or the loads or the weight limits, the height limits, any of those things. Those are all done by regulation, and it's upon the trucking companies to look at their routes before they go on any route. So they have to know what the legal limit is on a bridge. They have to know what the legal limit is for width, for height, and also for hazardous loads. So in this particular case, we would not mark those roads. There's just there would be the observation would be that those trucking companies would be required to make sure that their routes are they're able to cover those routes with the loads that they have, either width, height, weight, or hazmat restrictions.
If I could just follow up, please, sir. For example, neither the Trucking Association in Kentucky or Ohio was aware that that route is a hazmat restricted route. Do you all feel that Kentucky is providing adequate notice to truckers that under current federal regulations, they're not allowed to transport certain loads north of 275 on 75, including across the Brent Spence?
I can't answer for the trucking companies. Certainly, if they're a company that travels with hazmat, they travel with wide loads, they travel with anything, they'd have to have the proper permits if they have to do something. We've had permits before for wide loads or overweight loads, and all those have to be transported. And then, of course, we restrict those lanes as well on where they can go. That's an answer you'll have to take up with them. If they don't know the law, I can't answer that for them.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, at this point, we do not have any other hands raised.
Okay, let me, we got a question, Laura, a social media question, that something, I believe it read like this. Once the bridge is repaired, will it be safe to travel across? And, that's a really good and simple question, and there's going to be a really good and simple answer, and that is yes, assuredly yes. Okay, this was a safe and sound and sturdy bridge before the accident, before the crash, before the repairs, and it's going to be a safe and sound and sturdy bridge after the repairs. I just want to make that, I wanted to share that question and make that affirmative answer very clear. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And Laura, if there's nothing more, let me say one more thing. I really appreciate all the support that we've gotten. I said this early on. I want to just reiterate. I want to just punctuate it. Okay, the work of the cabinet, of the professionals in the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, has been extraordinary. Came together, collaborated. The work of the consultants, the engineers, the more than 20 inspectors that came literally immediately from around the country. The work of the laboratories that examined our materials, the steel and the concrete, literally overnight. The work of the engineers that designed the repairs, literally overnight, but to exacting standards, okay? And then the contractor who is mobilized. And I also want to make a point of thanking U.S. Department of Transportation, Ohio Department of Transportation for their support, and thank everyone in the local communities. All right, we recognize completely that this represents a challenge for you, a real challenge for those here in the local communities. And so we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your understanding, and we hope that you'll recognize that we are doing this project, this repair project, with all deliberate speed and awareness for the challenge that it represents for everyone locally. So just wanted to make those comments as we close out the conference. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. I just wanted to let you know we have one hand that just came up, and it is a follow-up from Christian Hauser.
Yes, sir. This is in regard to the reporter question just asked about hazardous cargo. I just wanted to clarify on that. As far as everything that I've looked at and ODOT has said as well, the only place that hazardous cargo is not allowed is through the Lytle Tunnel, which is just into Ohio. And I just wanted to check to see if in fact that there was a hazardous cargo restriction on the Brent Spence Bridge, because if there is, there seems to be a lot of confusion about whether that is there or if it's only the Lytle Tunnel, because there is signage for the Lytle Tunnel saying no hazardous cargo allowed in Ohio, but there's nothing, leading up to it on the Ohio side. So I just wanted to double check that the status of hazardous cargo on the Brent Spence Bridge.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Bob to take that question. Thanks.
Thank you. There is a restriction for hazardous cargo from I-275 north in Kentucky. There is no restriction in Ohio. So the reason for doing that is I believe that they had to do it on the bridge when they did the Lytle Tunnel because that was an exception to theirs. The restriction is only on the Kentucky side.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
We have one more
Oh, okay.
from Ms. Weingardner.
Okay, hi, sorry, just to follow up to that. So if the
My apologies.
You're going to have to do this one too.
There she goes.
okay, I'm unmuted now, right?
Yes, yes. My
Okay.
apologies.
So
This is a
sorry,
question
just
on the hazmat issue.
yeah, just a quick follow-up
Okay.
to what you just sort of clarified there. You said there's no restriction on the Ohio side, but if the bridge belongs to Kentucky, is there a restriction once you are on that bridge? Even if it's not posted in Ohio?
The restriction, the federal regulations require that any hazardous load go around 275 in Kentucky. That restriction, as I understand it, is not in Ohio. So yes, that would include the Brent Spence Bridge to the Ohio line.
Okay, so even if it's not posted, a driver would have to know that they're going into Kentucky and there's a restriction in Kentucky, so they shouldn't ever have gotten to the bridge to get on it. Because
Are
at
you
that
talking
point,
about-
they'd be in violation, right?
Are you talking about going south?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I can't answer that. Once they get into here, yes, they would have to. I don't know how that works because the restriction is for northbound on I-75, 71.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Okay. Thank you all again very much. Appreciate it. We'll keep you updated.